29th, September 29th. So with that being said, we're going to get our guest speaker up here and have a really good time. Phillip, when we look around for speakers for the Wealth Club and different education, as people that know us know that we don't bring up gurus. We go out and try and find people that really are doing the business. And Phillip has been around for a long time, and he's going to go through how long he's been doing this. And really, really excited to have him here. He's done a lot of different kinds of strategies with oh, I forgot about the closed text. Okay, we'll go on. But Phillip, come on up and let's get you going, and I'll switch you out here on your presentation.
While he's getting that ready, let me just I'm going to start off and setting the expectation for you guys. Okay, so I'm not a public speaker by any means, and I don't pretend to be one of the social media or anywhere like that. But I do have a story to tell, and I just wanted to ask y'all to bear with me. And there's two things that I want you guys to also keep in mind. One, I know that if you play golf, if you play poorly, you better play quickly. I also know that if you have anything worth saying, it's worth saying poorly. And so my story is about investing with an Airbnb strategy, and I hope the lessons that I've had to learn by experience may bless you to skip the painful way that I tend to learn things. Okay. So thank you all for being here. I appreciate you taking the time out. And my name is Phillip Warrick, and I'm a full-time real estate investor with over 20 years of experience. I went full-time in December of 2003. Serial real estate entrepreneur. All I do for a living is in the real estate space, buy, fix, and flip, buy and hold, and obviously with the short-term rentals as well. And I got started at a very young age, and I'll tell you more about that here in a minute. I'm blessed to be an Amazon best-selling author with the book Think Big with Brian Tracy, Kyle Wilson, Chris Gronkowski, a lot of really cool authors and speakers and things that I was able to co-author that book with. So, and if you'll stick with me till the end of the presentation, I will have some free resources to share with y'all where y'all can download a free digital copy of the Think Big book as well, so you can kind of learn a little bit more about me there. And I also have 5 apps, the 5 apps that I use to automate 90% of my real estate business on the short-term rentals and Airbnbs. I'm also a next level real estate coach. I have some of my coaching clients here today that came out to support me, and appreciate you guys coming out as well. And so here we go. That went a little bit quick. So I just wanted to share this a little bit with you guys. This is top left. This is one of my coaches, JT Fox. I don't know if any of you guys have heard about him. Super cool guy to hang out with. One of my coaches, again, in business. He's the world's #1 wealth coach is what he calls himself. I've got Brendan Burchard here, who is the founder of the High Performance Institute, who certified me as a high performance coach. And Hugh Hilton, you got Dean Graziosi, George Ross. This is Kyle Wilson up top right, who put together the Think Big book project that I was in. And just several other amazing people that I get to share the stage with. Like I said, my coaches, partners, business partners. This here is a billionaire that we're partners on a mall deal down in Tampa, Florida area. And so yeah, that's just kind of my gift. Wanted to share that with you guys. So first of all, I wanted to ask you guys, have you ever had any of the following challenges? Have you ever had a challenge growing your real estate portfolio? So if y'all give me a show of hands, how many of you guys are beginners? Have already have rental properties? Okay, cool. So we have a little bit of everybody, right? Anybody have Airbnbs yet? Short-term rentals? Okay. How many of y'all had problems with long-term tenants in your long-term rentals? Yeah, okay. What kind of problems have you had, Roger? How many dogs? Yeah, they're all gone? Good job. So I got to take a look at one of Roger's properties a few months ago, and yeah, the tenant had more pets than anything. I don't know, there's probably what, 30, 40 dogs. No lie.
Well,
Not quite there.
Glad you got them gone. They needed to go. The other problem that we've faced over the years is vacancy costs. I don't know how many of you guys are fix and flippers. And what I like to say is that as a fix and flipper, the biggest expense that you can have is the vacancy costs, right? The biggest expense as a real estate investor is the vacancies and making those vacant house payments during the renovation until the property sells. And how many of you guys have experienced low cash flow from the long-term rentals? Yeah. So when you use that debt leverage, it doesn't give you a whole lot of cash flow. And then the surprise maintenance issues. A lot of times we've dealt with the problem of, you know, an air conditioner goes out and there goes all your cash flow for, could be a year if you only make a couple $100 a month on that long-term rental. So I wanted to talk to you guys about my story a little bit. And again, I started out, I remember when I was a senior in high school, I got this idea that I wanted to buy a house if and when I went to college. And I remember asking my dad, what do I need to do if I want to buy a house when I go to college? And I think I'll rent out the extra rooms to my friends and that would pay for the mortgage for me and actually end up buying the house for me. And my dad told me, you know what, son, I think if you work long enough and get good credit and save up a 20% down payment, then you would be positioned and position yourself to be able to actually purchase a house when you go to college. So I decided right then I'm going to go ahead and, you know, stay back and not go to college, maybe go to community college and keep working on building my credit and save up that down payment that he was talking about. And then I remember one night I was watching late night TV and an infomercial came on and there was this old gentleman leaning against a bar stool talking about how to buy houses with no money, no credit, but creative financing. And I don't know how many of you guys were around back then, but this was like 97, 98. And who are we talking about? Yep. The late great Carlton Sheets. Yes, sir. And I ordered that course and I remember, you know, sitting there on a Saturday, my buddy saying, man, you're wasting your time. They're just trying to sell you something. And he didn't believe in it. I was like, well, I believe in this. I think it's going to work. I really do. And so I started doing what Carlton Sheets taught me in that home study course. I started calling for sale by owners out of the newspaper, looking for sellers that were motivated enough to offer terms, offer owner financing, offer the creative financing. And I remember one day I was reading through these scripts and calling these sellers, and a lady interrupted me and said, hey, Phillip, are you reading from a Carlton Sheets script? I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. How did you know? How could you know? And she said, well, listen, there's an investment club in Houston. It's called the Rich Club, the Real Estate Investment Club of Houston. They meet on the first Saturday of every month. And I think it would be a good idea for you to go there. So I went. And, you know, lo and behold, I entered this room a lot bigger than this. Back then, there was probably 500 people in attendance and several vendors. And it was a totally new world. And that started my journey that I haven't stopped since. I started out, you know, going to the Rich Club, learning from the speakers that came there, and then learning from the guest speakers that they had, and going through the courses, reading all the books, and hiring coaches, and doing everything that it took to learn the business. And I bought my first house at the age of 21. Okay, and the house was actually a probate deal, kind of like what Patton talked about there. It was actually an inherited property. My first deal in Deer Park, 21 years old. And the first few years, it took a while to really get the rhythm and get things going. And, you know, in 2002, I probably did 2-3 deals. Most of those first few deals that we ended up getting were from friends and family, from just telling friends and family what we were doing and the who you knows, right? The people that would actually know us already and trust us. And, you know, we were able to do that. In December of 2003, we ended up going full time. I had done enough deals to think, hey, this is real. Right? I started really believing in it and decided that I was going to do it full time. And so I remember there was a couple of really great speakers back then. I don't know if y'all heard of Ron LeGrand and, you know, Jeff Collar. Jeff Collar taught me pre-foreclosures and how to do short sales. So I was basically going to all these trainings and getting all this help. And it wasn't until I started really getting coaching that I really took off. And I remember in 2000, 4, I ended up getting into the coaching program with Jeff Collar to do short sales. And I don't know if any of you guys know what a short sale is, but basically it's when you need to purchase a property from a seller, but they owe less than, or they owe more than what the house is worth. Okay. So then you have to negotiate with the mortgage company to get them to accept less than what's owed so you can actually purchase that house. And I did all the door knocking on the pre-foreclosures. And the reason I bring that up is because I feel like the pre-foreclosures and short sales, it's something that's really, it's coming back. I've got a short sale in the pipeline right now. And I really think with the market changes and things that are going on, it is coming back. About 2005, 2006, I came across Chris Kirshner, and he's not even on the scene anymore, but he was teaching a system called the autopilot system for buying and selling houses. And his whole program was based around buying houses subject to buying houses by taking over payments and then turning around and putting tenant occupants in the property, but not just tenants, rent to own tenant buyers. Okay. And so the whole system was designed to fix a lot of those problems that we talked about before, right? If you can fix the low, you get a bigger down payment from a tenant buyer. They're going to take care of the property because as a tenant buyer, their goal is to purchase that house, right? And because they put a little bit of a down payment, they have that pride of home ownership, pride of ownership. And so what I decided, because of the low cash flow that we talked about earlier, and if you make $250 per property, for example, and a lot of times when I get applications from coaching clients and they talk about their income goals, it's never $250, right? It's like $10,000 a month, $25,000 a month, $100,000 a month, right? So they have these big, huge ambitions, as I'm sure we all do, right? But how many houses would it take at $250 a month for you to actually replace your income to be able to quit your job and do real estate full time? If your income is $10,000 a month, that's going to take like 40 houses. How long is it going to take to get 40 houses at $250 a month? So that was a problem that I saw with the whole business. And I started buying houses one house at a time, doing the subject to and putting rent to own tenant buyers in it. And so if you remember, this was 2005, 2006, and I'm buying all of these houses. And I decided that if I can get these tenant buyers to cash me out in a year or 2 years, then I'll be able to achieve that $25,000 per month or $75,000 or $100,000 a month because they'll be buying the property from me, and that's when I'll get my back end cash out, right? So I set out to do that, and we all know what happened in 2008. The market crash of 2008. I had 57 houses on the books in 2008, and all going through this pipeline of, the goal was for them to cash me out, And what happened after 2008, instead of them cashing me out and purchasing these houses and fixing their credit and doing what they needed to, I started getting houses back, one house at a time. And the market was down. You have the house you get back, it's covered, and you've renovated the house. Yeah, you got a $5,000 or $10,000 down payment from them, but when you get the house back and you have to replace the carpet, you have to paint the house again. They haven't paid the rent in a month or two, right? So we went through a really, really hard time and a lot of struggle. 2009, 2010, 2011 were some of the toughest years of my investing career because of going through all of that and trying to pick up the pieces. And we went through a lot of hard times, and we didn't know if we were going to make it out. But we did. We managed to hold on to some of the properties that we had. We did lose some, to foreclosure because we couldn't get them, reoccupied and things like that. But we did manage to hold out. And I want to show you kind of an example of what a house looks like when you get it back from a tenant buyer. So this house here is in Houston, and this tenant buyer, they had put $10,000, $12,000 down. There was a couple from where were they from? Georgia. They were from Georgia, and she was pregnant when they got there. Already had like 3 or 4 kids, and from what I understand, the husband left and at some point, and then she had another baby, and this is basically how we got the house method. So yeah, terrible. How am I doing so far, guys? We good? All right. What'd you say?
It looks like more than paint carpet.
Yeah, more than paint carpet. And like, seriously, we had renovated this house before they moved in. This was less than 2 years of them living there. So we had to repaint the whole house. I mean, you see they painted the cap, they painted the backsplash tile. Like, who does that? So, all right, so my story of finding the solution. So after 2011, I don't know how many of you guys were doing the like real estate circuit and going to all these trainers and things like that, but I remember it was a ghost town. If it was just me like going through the hard times, or basically a lot of the trainers that I was following, they disappeared off the scene. They folded, right? They weren't out there teaching anymore. And like I said, from about 2011, 2012, 2013, I was just kind of like licking my wounds, trying to manage the properties that we had, and ended up purchasing back a business that I'd sold in 03 to go real estate full time, and just really focused on that business and rebuilding that business. And then we started getting back into it a little bit. We started doing some wholesaling and doing some coaching and mentoring with other wholesalers, teaching them how to get in and out, because I felt like wholesaling was the safest way. Like, I don't want to take that risk and take that gamble of buying a house and fixing it up and holding it and going through that uncertainty and everything that I was going through. So in about 2016, 2017, it seemed like all of the gurus kind of did start coming back out of the scenes. And I started seeing all of these advertisements about Airbnb, okay, and the Airbnb strategy, and how you can make money with other people's properties and not have to buy a property. And that really resonated with me, because I was still kind of like, I don't want to buy properties yet, right? So I took that online training courses, an eight-week training courses, was in November of 2017. At that time, we actually had a beach house in Crystal Beach. We all know where Crystal Beach is, I hope. And I had actually purchased that house with owner financing, got 4.5% interest rate loan, I think in like 2014, 2015. And I had the local realtors down there, Cobb Real Estate, they were managing that property for me for 35% management fees. And I kept telling them about this Airbnb program. Like, y'all need to list the property on Airbnb. Please list it on Airbnb. I just need to try it out. And they wouldn't do it. And I didn't understand why they wouldn't do it. So I bought that training course, and I went through that training course. And since they wouldn't put it on, I did. And that's the first property that I started our Airbnb with. And the 4 years that they were managing it, we did 32,000, 34,000. I think the highest year was like 36,000. The first year that we had the property back for 2018, we did $72,000 on Airbnb with that property. And so we doubled their highest year. And not only that, we're managing it ourselves, so we didn't have the management fee, right? So obviously I was sold. I also went around doing the rental arbitrage method, which is where you go and you get a landlord that wants to rent a property out long-term, and you put a long-term lease on it, and with their permission, you explain to them what you're doing, and then you fully furnish that property and put it on Airbnb, and you make the difference between what you're paying in long-term rent and what you're collecting from Airbnb. So I thought, this is great, very low risk. First and last month's rent, furnish the property, and I'm in business. And it was working out great. We were doing really good, and we were going fast. We ended up 17 properties, and some of them were properties that we owned. As we got rental properties back, we would go ahead and convert them, refinance them with, loan products like everybody talked about tonight, these non-QM loans, and we would refinance them, furnish them, and put them on Airbnb. And we all know what happened March 2020, right? Here we go again. Airbnb let everybody that had reservations cancel because of the pandemic with no repercussions, right? They didn't even adhere to the cancellation policy. So here I am now, scared, like, oh my God, like I've got 17 properties that I need to pay rent on with complete vacancy. Like, what am I going to do? And so I got to thinking about it, right? I'm doing this rental arbitrage method. I'm buying basically a landlord's house for them. The role reversal of being a tenant to somebody else did not resonate with me. And basically, I was over here paying their mortgage down. They were getting all of the benefits of owning that rental property, the depreciation, the mortgage pay down, the appreciation, the property value is going up. And so I was able to, in 2020, March of 2020, I went to my landlords one at a time. And I said, guys, I'm sorry, but we're going to have to get out of the lease. And they graciously would let me out one at a time. Some of them gave me my deposit back. Some of them kept my deposit. Some of them threatened lawsuits. Some of them I paid to get out. But I started getting out of those properties one by one. While everybody else was in quarantine, just hanging out, waiting to see what was happening, we were working around the clock, basically shutting down our Airbnbs and moving that furniture into storage, moving the furniture into properties that we owned, and slowly setting up one property at a time. And so from March of 2020, we don't have any more rental arbitrage properties, and we've been adding one property at a time. We've been doing basically the Burr method, right? Where we're buying a house, renovating it, and instead of renting it, we're furnishing it and putting it on Airbnb, and then we're refinancing it and then repeating the process. And that's basically the story of the solution that I've found that allows us to fix up a property without cutting any corners, right? So I like to say that Airbnb is helping us solve all of the problems that we talked earlier, right? The monthly rent that we get usually is 2 to 3 times more than what you would get from long-term rentals, right? And don't get me wrong, there's months where it's probably the same, you know, there's months like July where it's like out of the roof, right? But there's months where, you know, we do 2 or 3 times rent. And so instead of cash flowing maybe $250 per property, maybe we cash flow 500, right? Double the profit, or maybe we get $1,000 a month, right? So if you got a $10,000 goal to, you know, replace your household income, then, you know, $1,000 a month, it sounds a lot easier to get 10 houses than it does to get, you know, 40, right? But this is how we fixed up that property that we talked about earlier, and, you know, got rid of all the pee-pee, poo-poo, crayons and Kool-Aid, got new flooring, repainted the cabinets, pulled the paint off of the backsplash, turned this property around really, really quickly, and, you know, fully furnished it, got it set up.
So let me ask you a question. Sure. For this Airbnb, what type of clientele are you going after?
So this is the interesting question, because a lot of people, when they think about Airbnbs, like I did when I got started, you think about vacation destination, right? But I'm actually doing this with properties in the suburbs. You know, I do have the beach houses down in Crystal Beach. We do have a duplex in Galveston, and we're renovating a historic house down in Galveston. I did properties when I was doing the arbitrage model. I actually had 3 arbitrage properties in Tahoe, California, which was really cool because that was a year-round playground, really cool place. And you know, those were really good. But what I found is that the houses that I had these long-term tenants or these tenant buyers in, as I get them back, I'm putting them on, right? So a house that would normally get $1,500 to $1,600, maybe $1,800 a month as a long-term rental, we put it on Airbnb and we average $3,000 to $3,500. Sometimes there's months like in, you know, June, July, where we might get $5,000 to $6,000 per month on those properties that normally rent for $1,500. So to answer your question, as far as who comes, the clientele, sometimes it's interesting. They're coming to town to visit family on vacation, and they're going to go sightsee and do things around the Houston area. Sometimes they're coming to town. Maybe they're, you know, long change or job down at the chemical plants, and they need a place to stay, and 3 guys getting per diem, they'd rather rent a house together than to get, you know, 3 hotel rooms, you know? So it's just a combination of all of that.
Right.
But this is us now, okay? Epic Property Pros. And we've managed to maintain Superhost status. And right now we have 23 listings across 20 properties. So from 2020 to, you know, to now, adding one property at a time, we're at 23 listings. And the reason I say that it's 20 properties because some of them, like I have a duplex in Galveston, so that's, you know, 2 listings, 1 property. I also have a house in Baytown that had a detached garage, and we converted that detached garage into a little studio apartment. So the detached garage is 1 listing, and then the house is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. It's a whole nother listing. And that little garage brings in $1,600, $1,700 a month, you know, on top of what the house brings in, that $3,000 a month.
So when you're doing this with your clients that you're going after, what is the typical length of time that they're staying in the property?
So it is a short-term rental. Okay. It varies. Sometimes they come just for the weekend. Sometimes they come for 7 days. We've had guests like this, the little studio garage apartment. Sometimes they come and they stay there for a month, you know, a month and a half. But it's usually less than 30 days.
Right. But you're charging them by the night. Right?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. They pay by the night. So this is, you know, so the one right there in the middle, Sea Life's Beauty, that's the beach house that we were talking about. And y'all can find all of these too. If you go to epicpropertypros.com, that's our direct booking website. You can also Google Epic Property Pros and it will bring the link to Airbnb that shows you all of our listings there. The one there at the bottom right, that's the Galveston duplex. So yeah, that's just a little trick I learned in a book that I read. Yeah. So does that catch your attention? It's interesting because, like, you know, a lot of times we'll put these houses up, like this one here in the middle of Live Oak Trail in Deer Park. We just put it up. I don't even think we have a review yet. And literally 24 hours from putting it up, we had our first reservation. Yeah, and we've had 2 people stay there already. That one actually just went live a couple of weeks ago. So. Yeah. So I like to tell people that I'm a real estate investor first, right? And this brings up the point of, like, why not just vacation destinations? Okay. So we do all of the creative marketing that we normally do as real estate investors. We're looking for those off-market properties that we can buy below market, right? So I have the areas that I like to work in. I live in Deer Park, so I like to buy in Deer Park, Pasadena, LaPorte, the southeast side of town. And so most of my marketing efforts are down there, right? And because Airbnb is working in these houses, like these houses, like I said, they're in the suburbs. Like that's a house, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house in Deer Park. You know, this is a house, the bottom left, it's a little 3-bedroom. It's actually a 2-bedroom, 1-bath with a 1-car garage that we converted in Pasadena, right? And like I said, they do $3,000-4,000 a month. Right? So you stay in that quadrant. I do. I try to stay in that quadrant, you know, and you know, for the vacation destinations, it's cool to have Galveston and Crystal Beach as well. But at the same time, I'm looking for a real estate investment opportunity, right? I'm not going to go pay for a turnkey house that's, you know, perfectly set up and overpay for it, because that's a lot of what's happening down in Galveston. A lot of buyers are buying based on the rental income from Airbnb, and they're throwing out the real ARV, the real property value out the window because they're buying that cash flow. Does that make sense? So I feel like that's one of the reasons where Galveston is so overpriced right now compared to what it has been.
What I've seen in a lot of people, and that's why I was asking about different clientele. From what I've seen, a lot of people are buying properties retail, paying full retail to put on Airbnb. And once they buy a retail, then they have the expense of furnishing it on top of that. So they're taking their margin, they're way over leveraging right out of the gate. So if they don't make an income, there's something. You can get upside down really quick with something like that. And did you experience that with you've never gone down that path though, have you?
No, I haven't. You know, I'm a real estate investor first, and my goal is to buy a house that I can purchase with your money, right? With Becky's money, right? I want to buy it with Cal's money. I want to buy it at that 70% minus repairs, right? Buy the house with the hard money or private money, and then fix it up. And then instead of renting it or selling it, I'm furnishing it and putting it on Airbnb.
That's something that everybody should really pay attention to. I mean, that is one of the most, that's the greatest point that Phillip has made tonight. He's thinking of it as an investor. He's buying as an investor. And that is critical in this business to survive long term in this business. And as we're coming into a whole new era out there in the world that we don't know where it's going, it's even more important to think as that investor and buy smart. Great point.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, any other questions or comments? Go ahead.
I'm actually curious about your process as far as the design. Do you have kind of like a system, or do you do personalize each one, or?
I wish I had a better story to tell, but it's my wife.
Yeah, well, that's a great story.
This is all Lindsay, and you'll, like, you see the design. It's all my wife. Like I'm not a visionary person. Like, you try to describe something before it's there, and I have no clue what you're talking to me. But I'm blessed, you know, and like I said, we started young. My wife and I got married when we were 21 years old. And we've been self-employed the entire time. And we've lived together, worked together, everything we do together. But she actually grew up, with an uncle that would build his own houses. She would go up there for the summer in Wisconsin and spend a lot of time. Like she's more Asian. Right? She's like if there's something that's hung on the wall, it's Lindsay. She can hang a ceiling, right? So, but yeah, it's her, and we've always been into the design shows and things like that. And yeah, so we're definitely blessed with that as well. So
When you recommend you, I don't mind.
Yeah, no, I get it. You can go to my listings there and look through some photos and stuff. But, Richard? Yes, sir. That's a great question. So when we first started, we did a lot of the, going to garage sales. You can buy stuff used, you can buy stuff off garage sales. And it just depends on if you're in a hurry, right? So if you're in a hurry, we've been buying a lot of our furniture from AFW down in League City. It's American Furniture Warehouse. Okay, they're actually an outfit out of Colorado, I believe, but they have really good prices. What's that? Yeah. Yeah, so really great company. So we've been getting a lot of furniture from them. So, but if we do have the time, we can get a pre-owned. Good.
Second question. You wanted to pick properties to enter into this. You have a formula to reverse engineer where you target the area. For instance, where you have a bedroom community of Houston, and there's one or two Airbnb listings in the 25-mile radius, 20-mile radius. That means there's opportunity there. How do you track the opportunity? How do you approach them?
Great question. Great question. So at the end, I am going to share the 5 apps that I use, and one of those is an app that you can use. So actually kind of pull comparables to see what other properties are around there and what other ones are going for. Okay. One thing you want to stay away from is HOAs. Okay. So HOAs, POAs, sometimes they don't allow it. They have restrictions against doing Airbnb. So you really want to stay away from those. But yeah, if you want to look, if you have a certain area where you're interested in investing, definitely see if there's other ones around there. And if there are, that's a good sign, right? Another thing to look at is if there's hotels nearby. So people ask me all the time, why is people renting houses in Deer Park? Well, there's hotels in Deer Park, right? So where there's hotels, there's a demand for this, right? The guests can come and have a full kitchen. We're in a hotel, they don't. They're staying long term. They can do that. Does that answer? Does that help? No? Yes, sir. How do I manage to make it ready for the next customer? We have a team of about 15 cleaning ladies. Okay. So between our team, we have 15 cleaning ladies. There are apps also for cleaning ladies where you can actually call them turnover B&B, where it's like the Uber for cleaning ladies, right? So they're vetted, they have, like reviews and things like that. So you can find cleaning ladies if you don't have your own team. But I did create my own property management company so that I can manage my own properties plus my student partners and people that I do business with as well. So we have a good team that,
Oh, so are all the property you're doing at this point for vacation rental?
So that, I think we'll get to some of that, but I mean, everything I'm doing now is for short-term rental. That's what you mean.
Well, no,
I'm not doing long-term rentals anymore.
I mean vacation opposed to being down by the plants. Guys are coming in and working for maybe 2 or 3 months at a time, or possibly being around the medical center where patients are coming in, and for families where patients are coming in and staying for anywhere from a week to 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, there's definitely those opportunities.
Can you jump into any of those?
There's a website called it's for traveling nurses. Anybody heard of it? What's it called? It's not coming to mind. It's Furnish Finder. There it is. Yeah, Furnish Finder. And that's to attract more of those long-term things. But here in Texas, I believe, and nothing I've said is legal advice, but if somebody's in a property for more than 28 days, then they become a tenant, right? So I'm kind of being a little bit careful with that. Before 2008, we actually had a lake house in Conroe. We had a lake house up in Lake Livingston. And this was like full leases, right? We were like full lease agreements, them sending us checks for deposits and having to give them checks back. It was such a heavy lift before then. We sold those houses a little bit after the '08 crash. That was one of the things that got us by. We did sell some of those properties, but the Airbnb, the way that you can run this whole business with the technology that's there, it's, to me, it was the closest thing that I could get to with a real estate business to what Tim Ferriss talked about in his book in 2007, the 4-Hour Work Week, right? Where you're basically running the whole business with virtual assistants and technology, right? So that's what I really loved about Airbnb and everything that it's brought for us. So, does that make sense? Okay. How are we on time, guys? Let's see. So I pulled this report just the day before yesterday for you guys. This is our report. The last 7 days, we have $11,200 on the books. The last 30 days, we did $56,000. For the last year, it was $454,000. And I wanted to share again some student results. So I have this property here is actually in Deer Park. This is a client of mine who came to me for coaching. She's in San Diego, California. She has a full-time job, $185,000 a year W-2 income earner as an engineer, an aerospace engineer. And she'd always wanted to get into real estate, but couldn't do it because of her full-time job. And she was introduced to me by another lady that I'd met at another Airbnb training, another training. And we were able to help her purchase this house here in Deer Park. And this was another property that was an inherited home and it hadn't been renovated. And we partnered with her on this and we managed the renovation. We managed the setup, the furnishing it for her for Airbnb. And then now we also manage the property on Airbnb. And she started getting coaching from me. I think it was October. We ended up buying the house in November and went live in January. And she was blessed to have a home equity line of credit against her house in San Diego. So she had some pretty good equity. So she was actually able to write a check to actually purchase this property. We're not all blessed with that, but it was still a property that she was able to buy below market. And then we fixed it up, furnished it. And then after her having it for 6 months, she did the cash out refinance to pay off her home equity line of credit and got that completely paid off. And then shortly after that, we got her second property here in Houston. And this one, we actually helped her purchase it subject to. And she was able to use her home equity line of credit again to cover the furniture and the renovation and getting it up and on Airbnb. And that's her second property. And now we're in search of her third property as well. And we partnered with her so that way we can, manage it and do that for her so that she can be a passive investor, right? So one thing that I like to mention when we're talking about real estate is that we're basically taking traditionally what we would think is a passive investment. Like everybody remembers playing Monopoly when we were kids, right? And I don't know who all here has read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? And it talks about creating passive income. And I believe that single family homes as rentals, long-term rentals or short-term rentals, that's not passive income. It's a very active income because you have to stay involved in it, especially when you turn them into an Airbnb. You're basically running a hotel out of the house, right? So there's the cleaning that you have to deal with. There's the maintenance issues. But Airbnb is helping us keep up with these properties. So instead of me not seeing a house for a year or 2 years and coming back to the house after we evict the tenant and seeing what we went through, we're able to maintain that property. We're able to keep up the maintenance issues. There's, as a guest calls and there's a leaky toilet, we fix it. Where a tenant might not. If you saw the blue tape on that toilet, there was faucets not working, toilets not working. Like that's literally the day they moved out. Like I don't even know how they were living like that for those 2 years. But basically, if you remember playing Monopoly, the goal was to turn those 4 little green houses into a red hotel, right? And I believe the red hotel is the passive income, right? So we do our active income by buying little greenhouses or buying Airbnbs, fixing them up, renting them out. But if we never trade those houses up to a red hotel, we're always going to be active investors, right? That's the problem that I ran into in '08 because we didn't get to sell those houses, right? So we were always active, always grinding it out. But now what I'm doing is using Airbnb as my flipping strategy, right? So I'm buying these houses, renovating them, putting them on Airbnb, holding them for a year. After I've had it for a year, then I'm going to evaluate how good it's doing. Is it really giving me some great cash flow? Or is the cash flow return on investment based on my equity position not that great? And so I can now do what I wanted to do in '08. I can sell these properties one at a time after I've owned it for a year. And if I sell the property after I've owned it for a year, we have long-term capital gains instead of short-term capital gains. So it's more profitable. We also make money during that process. Where a fix and flipper, they might buy a house, fix it up and flip it in 6 to 8 months and not have any income coming in. But I can buy a house, renovate it, put it on Airbnb within 60 days, and now I'm getting income on it, right? So not only fix the problem of vacancy costs, but I also fix the problem of that low monthly rent. So I might be making $1,000 a month instead of $250 a month, and I can sell those properties. And so imagine, after you buy a property at a time, whether it's one per quarter or a couple per year or one a month like I've been doing, and a year from now, you get to put that house on the market and sell that house. And when that house sells, you cash a check for $25,000, $50,000, $75,000, sometimes $100,000 if you hit a home run, right? And so you build that pipeline, and that's, to me, that's what's going to create the financial freedom that I needed. How do I do this? So, oh man. Where were we? I was on Monopoly. There we go. Let's see what's next. Yeah, so that's my goal. My goal is to continue doing this, and we actually had a closing on August 1st where we cashed a $94,000 check. August 2nd, we had another closing on one of our Pasadena properties where we got it was just under $50,000 check. And because we're in the process of doing new houses, that house that I just mentioned in Deer Park, the house that we sold on August 1st, that furniture moved straight to the new house that we had just finished renovating. And then the same thing with the second house that we sold, we moved it to the property in Houston on Dixie. So that's kind of the pipeline that I'm building, right? So now when I sell a property, I've got all the furniture to go to the next one that I'm doing, right? And that's my plan, is to continue doing that. And as I cash out, I can use that income to live on, or I can use that income to do a more passive investment where I'm actually investing into a syndication, for example, or into a deal with founders with JT Fox on the deals that they bring. Like I told you guys, we invested in a mall where we put up money and they'll flip that mall within a year, and we make a really passive investment. Why is it passive? It's because I'm putting the money out into that opportunity. They're managing the whole thing. All I have to do is sit back and wait for my money to come back with friends, right? So that to me is the passive investment. That's to moving into hotels or apartment complexes and things like that. And that's the vision that I want to set for you guys, and the opportunity. You can either have the cash flow from a few Airbnbs. You can manage them yourself with a lot of technology. You can have a management company do it. But the goal in my mind is to be able to cash out and to move those profits into a bigger investment and move from the active to the passive, and then continuing doing and building that pipeline as I keep. You can, absolutely, you can. I have losses still right now that are offsetting some of that income because of the depreciation and all the things that we have. So, but that is going to be the strategy as we continue to do this and moving now into where we're basically set up in position to sell one property per month. We actually have 3 houses on the market right now. We're listing another one tomorrow, and there'll be another one right behind that. So that's kind of what we're.
If you have an Airbnb and you hold it for a year, could you sell it instead of selling it as a house? Could you sell it as a business?
Yeah.
Already established business.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the upcoming
Yeah.
stage.
Absolutely, and that's a great question. And I see that happening a lot in Galveston. They'll set it up as an Airbnb, and then it's fully furnished, and they'll sell it as a turnkey business. So for some of the people that don't have the the time and the design eye to make the design and set it up, and they want to be right away and active when they purchase, they can do that. But here's the thing: if you're paying full retail for a house, it's already furnished. The loan products that are available for that are going to require 20% down. Right, so 20, and I think the lenders have changed it even maybe to 25% right now for the short-term rental estate. Right, so 20, 25% down payment plus a few percent for closing costs, you know, how many properties can you actually buy, depending on where you're at, and if you have investment capital, right? Or you can work with private money partners, you know, find partners that have the money, or somebody like my student that have a checkbook that she was ready to write a check, you know. So, but that's definitely a strategy. And the, you know, one of the houses that we have listed right now is in Crystal Beach, and it's fully furnished, and we're offering it as a fully furnished if they want to buy it as a turnkey, ready to go. I think if we end up with like a owner occupant buyer, then they're not going to want the furniture, right? So then we'll be able to move that furniture to our Galveston property and sell it. And that's our goal, is to hopefully have that house on Crystal Beach sold when we finish the Galveston renovation, so we can move all of that furniture straight over there. Ready to go. Great question. So if you want to buy a fully furnished, ready to go, I've got 4 of them for sale. All right, so here's the solution. And, you know, we've probably pretty much covered all of this, right? So the first thing, like I said, is we're real estate investors first. We're looking for a great investment opportunity. We're looking for that off-market property that we can buy below market, that we can add value by doing the renovation. And then we're going to furnish it and list it on Airbnb. And then we're going to systemize and automate that whole process, and then continuing adding one property at a time at whatever speed you're comfortable with, or however fast you can get those houses up on Airbnb. And then you sell them and trade up to the more passive investments. And so some of the most common mistakes that I learned from doing this, and what I feel like investors make, is holding on to single family houses forever and thinking that they're going to collect a bunch of little greenhouses to get that passive income so they can quit their job, so they can have the financial freedom. But we all know, right? Like I'm always one phone call away from a $5,000 to $7,000 problem, an air conditioner going out that we have to replace. And if you've achieved 10 grand a month, and then you have a $7,500 air conditioner go out, there went all of your passive income for that month. So the idea too is, like, we're renovating these houses. Why not sell them in a few years before it starts needing to be renovated? And so another mistake that investors make is believing that owning rent houses is a passive investment. Passive income to me is not rental properties like we talked about. Passive income is going to be from investments that you don't have to do the work. And then not trading those single family properties up into investment properties, and also not having a coach. And if you guys remember, I started at 17 years old when I was a senior in high school, and I bought that course. I didn't do my first house until I was 21, right? And then I dabbled in it in 2002, 2003. And 2004 is when I really hired my first coach. And that's what helped me go from just doing a couple of houses per month to doing a house a week back then. And that was because I had coaches and I had mentors. And that's what really got me to that next level. And here's the first thing that you guys would want to do, right? Create tons of cash by investing or flipping, right? So a lot of people, if you don't have the investment capital to lean on, Steve, and to get a hard money loan, because with hard money, you still have to have a down payment. You still have to have the monthly payments to cover those costs. You have to have 25% of the renovation costs as well as the capital. So until you have that, you need to basically flip houses. So you either start off as a wholesaler, right? Or once you've wholesaled a few, then you have some money, maybe you can do a buy, fix, and flip. And again, locating off-market properties that you can fix and flip into an Airbnb, and then sell that property and continue repeating it. And like I said, you need to get a coach. If you have a coach, you can do it a lot faster and go a lot further with somebody that you can bounce your ideas off of and help you make sure and evaluate those properties as you go. Some of the most common mistakes that people make without having a coach. This is my wife, Lindsay, in the pink shirt, by the way. And this was at a closing at our office. But they take forever to start. Just like me, it took 4 years before I did my first deal, from 17 to 21. And that's, I would think, as a result of not having a coach. They don't make money right away. They overpay for houses, because if you don't have somebody looking over that, I like using people like Steve for the money, because they're also not going to let you borrow on the house if you're overpaying. So that's always, that's right, unless you want to bring a lot of money to the table. And then they don't have somebody to bounce ideas off of, right? Obviously, as a coach. And then they could get completely overwhelmed and potentially quit. And so, you know, if you could have done it on your own, you would have done it by now. And so I recommend that you guys get a coach. And so Where do we start with Airbnb? And like I said in the beginning, you guys, if you can do this QR code, this will take you to my website where you can download the 5 apps that I live by. These are the 5 apps that I use every single time that I want to list a property without. And one of them is going to be the most obvious, it's the Airbnb. But there are 5 apps there, apps that will help you with what Richard was talking about, to be able to run comps to see what other properties in the area are renting for. So you can pick a good target market. Let me know when you guys have that. Is it working? You probably need to keep it open on your web browser because I'm going to give you a few more. And this will also give you the opportunity after you download that app, if you want to have a conversation with me one-on-one. After you download these resources, you'll be able to find my link to my calendar where you can book a 15-minute strategy session where I'll talk to you guys and answer any more questions that you guys have on a Zoom or on a phone call. This is the short-term rental resources. So if you'll download this as well, this is going to give you access to the checklist that we've created over the past 5 years doing our Airbnb business. This is going to be checklists for furnishing the house so you don't forget anything. It's going to be checklists for your cleaning ladies so they can check off as they've cleaned the property and make sure that they've taken care of everything that needs to be taken care of. Just like an airplane pilot doesn't get in a plane and fly it without signing off on the checklist. I believe these standard operating procedures and checklists are very important to help you guys get started quicker and to be able to get those checklists from that website there.
How many?
How many properties? We have 23 listings right now. Yes, sir. Okay, and then we talked about the Think Big book. You get the Think Big book. This will be a free digital copy of the book. And like I said, it's a book that I co-authored with Kyle Wilson, Brian Tracy, Chris Gronkowski, a lot of amazing other real estate investors and entrepreneurs, speakers, and things like that. So it's a really good book. It's short chapters. I contributed a chapter and everybody's contributed a chapter. You can read, 1 chapter a night and get some inspiration from that as well. That's pretty much all I got. Everybody got it?
Okay, well, let's get closer. One insights and great lessons from all of that. I really thank you. I'm glad we had you come in and do this presentation.
I appreciate you having me. Let me get a selfie with you out there.
Okay. And then don't anybody leave because I got some giveaways. Prizes.
Don't get rid of it.
Perfect.
Thank you all
Okay.
for coming out. I really
So-
appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, hang on. Give me both of them, I can't. Okay, so our first giveaway is book How to Start and Run Your Business the Right Way. And this is Michael Coleman. This is one of the owners and founders of Anderson Advisors. Really good book. So why don't you pull a ticket out there and call out the last 4 digits.
They have to be here to win.
I gotta be here to win.
0, last 4, 3061.
Okay, now we're gonna have another drawing, and this is going to be for a starter package with Strata Ventures. It's a $1,500 value. And so if you get this, then whoever wins this needs to let the girls know so we can make sure we get that information, get your information so we can give that to them. And let's see who gets it.
This is for Diego's company?
For Diego's company. Yep.
Yeah, I was here a few weeks ago for his presentation. This is good stuff. 3058.
All right, congratulations. So get with Angie or Susan and make sure that they tell them that you won the Strata Ventures beginner package, and they'll get all your information so we can get that to them. And Oriana will probably contact you. Okay, so guys, thank you so much for coming out tonight.
So have more tickets, Steve. I don't find that he's, you know.
Oh, that's all the prizes I got tonight. I'll come back next week, because there's next month, because we'll have more.
Thank you guys for coming out.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Great, man. Yeah.
Phil, you love
Yes.
something out when you're 21 and buy your first film. You got to be- or looking.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Right after I bought my first film, I became the looking like the darkest.
Yeah, I know it's past your time now.
Absolutely.
So we're trained in business to look at a best case, a worst case, and a likely mid case. What is the worst case for this business and how do you mitigate it?
So what's harder than Airbnb?
Well, for instance, I did $20 million worth of lease purchases in this town, and the subprime hit us. And those tenant buyers could no longer buy. And we ended up with